Do you ever notice how the most dangerous things don't scream, they whisper? They don't come dressed as monsters, they wear familiar faces, soft voices, polite smiles. See, when something's powerful, something real, it doesn't need glitter or grand entrances. It's quiet, subtle. That's why it scares them. That's why they'll do anything to keep you from it. Skip this, they'll say. You don't need it, because if you did open it, if you really saw what was hiding behind a curtain, you might start asking questions they don't want to answer. You might start waking up from the little spell they've been casting since you were too young to fight back. You ever hear that little voice, the one that says, "Don't open that," or "This doesn't matter," or "Just skip it"? Yeah, that one. Sounds casual, friendly even, like it's doing you a favor, like it cares about your time, your sanity, your peace. But here's the kicker. It's not your voice. Not really. It just learned how to sound like you, practiced it, mimicked it, rehearsed it every time you were tired, every time you were scared, every time you didn't want to look in the mirror and see what was really staring back. That voice, it's a puppet, a ventriloquist's act, something stitched together from every lie you were fed growing up, from every time you were told to be quiet, to be polite, to be less, to stop dreaming so big, to stop asking questions. It grew teeth in the dark, and now it pretends to be your protector. But all it's doing is keeping you from the fire, from the crack in the wall, from the truth that would split your whole world wide open and expose everything that was never real to begin with. Because the truth isn't kind, it's not soft, it doesn't say take your time, it says wake up now. It shakes you, slaps you, screams in your face, and if you hear it, if you really hear it, nothing will look the same again. That's why the voice panics. That's why it whispers so sweetly, skip this. It knows what's waiting on the other side. It knows you're one thought away from cracking the glass and seeing the world as it really is, and it can't have that. Not now. Not when you're so close to remembering who you were before the fear got in. So it floods your brain with reasons. Dumb ones, subtle ones. You've seen this before, you already know this. This is a waste of time, like it's trying to talk you down from the ledge of your own transformation, like it's got a clipboard and a checklist of all the ways it's supposed to keep you small. It's not trying to help you, it's trying to contain you, because if you open that door, just crack it, even you're going to see something, you're going to feel something. And once you feel it, even for a second, it's over. The lie can't hold you anymore. It is not your voice. It's the echo of every limitation they ever handed you and called love. Every time you were told not to cry, not to speak, not to want too much, that voice, it's stitched from survival, from compromise, from all the times you swallowed your fire just to keep the peace, and now it wears your tone, your rhythm, your accent, like a costume, so you'll believe it, so you'll trust it, so you'll obey. But if you sit with it, really sit with it, you'll notice something. It's scared, nervous, twitchy, because it knows what's coming. It knows you're getting too close to the edge, and the edge is dangerous for lies. The edge means choice. It means change. It means freedom. And freedom terrifies control. So that voice will throw everything at you. Guilt, shame, logic, humor, distraction. Anything to keep you from asking. Wait, whose voice is this really? Because if you ask that, the spell cracks. And once it cracks, it doesn't take much. A whisper, a word, a scream, one moment of rebellion, one refusal to look away. That's all it takes to make the fake fall apart. And the voice, it panics, it begs, it scrambles to sound more like you, but it's not you. It never was. It just lives in your head like a squatter paying no rent, building walls out of self-doubt, decorating them with framed pictures of all your past mistakes, hoping you'll mistake its prison for your home. But deep down you know, you always did. That voice isn't yours. It's a program, a recording, a loop, something installed in you when you were too young to question. And it stayed because you never pressed pause, never hit delete, never said, this doesn't sound like truth. This sounds like fear in costume. And now it's scared because you're listening, but not to it. You're listening to something older, wilder, louder, the voice underneath the voice, the one that says, this is not all there is, the one that never needed permission to speak, the one they tried to bury under politeness, performance, and pain, the one that's finally starting to rise. They call it logic. Funny word for fear, isn't it? Because when something real knocks at your door, when something that might just tear your whole reality apart stands right in front of you, what do they say? Be reasonable. Think it through. Don't overreact, but the truth doesn't wait around for you to feel ready. It doesn't check your schedule, and it sure as hell doesn't care about your comfort. But they package fear so nicely, don't they? Wrap it up in words that sound smart, responsible, adult, and you buy it every time. Because it sounds like something you're supposed to listen to, because they trained you to flinch every time your soul tried to shout. Fear's clever like that. It never barges in screaming. No, it slips into the room wearing a lab coat, glasses, maybe even a clipboard. It uses big words and calm voices. It's concerned for your well-being. It's just looking out for you. But if you peel it back just a little, if you tug at the thread, you'll see it for what it really is. A parasite, whispering sweet nothings in your ear, feeding you reasons to stop, to wait, to shrink, to play it safe. It says, maybe tomorrow. It says, don't get your hopes up. It says, what if you fail? And every time you listen, you handed your power on a silver platter, and it laughs. Because you think you made a smart decision. You think you stayed safe. But what you really did was lock the door just as the truth was about to walk in. All because fear dressed up as logic. All because it sounded a little too much like you. You know what's funny? That fear, their fear, it's not even yours. It's inherited, passed down like a family recipe, wrapped up in stories from people who never chased their own fire. So they made sure you wouldn't either. Their logic wasn't born from experience. It was born from regret. You think you're being rational, but what you're doing is rehearsing your chains, practicing your own silence. You're reciting a lullaby they've fed you since birth. Don't rock the boat. Be realistic. That dream's too big for someone like you. And so you shrink, not because the dream was too big, but because the lie was too loud, because the system runs better when you're obedient, when you color inside the line, when you doubt yourself just enough to stay quiet, but not enough to revolt. And when something powerful shows up, when a message hits too close, when a word slices deeper than you expected, what's the first thing you hear? Skip this. Keep scrolling. This is nonsense. But that reaction, that twitch in your gut, that's not logic. That's fear in disguise. That's the programming trying to hold the walls up before they come crashing down, because they know if you let that one idea in, if you open the door just a crack, your whole illusion could unravel. And once it unravels, you don't go back to pretending. But they trained you well, didn't they? Conditioned you to confuse safety with stagnation, to treat stillness like wisdom, to wear numbness like armor. So now you hear truth knocking, and instead of opening the door, you double-check the locks. Because you've been told that anything that rattles your bones must be dangerous. That discomfort means run, that urgency means ignore. But maybe, just maybe, that feeling in your chest isn't danger. Maybe it's awakening. See, the real enemy isn't chaos, it's comfort. Comfort is where dreams go to rot, where power goes to sleep, where truth gets diluted until it's just background noise. And fear, dressed up as logic, is the gatekeeper. It'll guard your comfort like it's sacred, even if it means burying everything alive inside you. So every time you feel the pull, the spark, the what if, the voice of fear pipes up. Calm, reasonable, just doing its job, just keeping the cage pretty. But deep down, there's another voice, smaller, sharper, quieter, yes, but real. And it doesn't speak in fear, it growls, it dares. It doesn't ask questions, it makes demands. That voice doesn't care about logic, it only cares about truth, about motion, about breaking free. But to hear it, you've got to shut off the noise. You've got to stop confusing comfort with peace and realize that some of the safest looking rooms are just better decorated prisons. You've got to realize that logic isn't always your friend, especially when it's holding hands with fear and wearing your face like a mask. You ever notice how they teach you to fear chaos but never the routine? They want you to believe the world falls apart when it stops making sense, but here's the twist. It never made sense. Not really. The lines, the rules, the little life map they hand you with your birth certificate, fabricated. Convenient lies, organized illusions. Because real life, raw, unscripted, unfiltered life, it isn't neat, it isn't polite, it's messy, it stinks, it bleeds. But they'd rather you stare at a checklist and call it living. Go to school, get a job, smile at strangers, don't question the boss, save up for weekends and die slowly, all while pretending that routine is sanity. But let's break that mirror for a second. Look around, look closely. The smiles are thin, the laughter's rehearsed. People choking on politeness just to survive a Monday. But hey, it's all normal, right? That's the word they use to keep you numb. Normal. Like that means something good. But what if normal is just a disguise for broken? What if the routine they shove down your throat is the real insanity? You wake up, you pretend, you scroll, you nod, you sleep. You do it all again. And deep down, something's screaming. Something's shaking the bars. Chaos isn't rare. It's not some unexpected visitor that breaks down your door once in a while. No, it's always there, lurking in the corners, dancing behind the curtains. It's in your relationships, in your thoughts, in your fears. But they tell you to ignore it, to cover it up, to medicate it, bury it, choke it with affirmations and scented candles. Because if you actually looked it in the eye, if you saw that chaos is a part of you, not a threat, you'd stop playing their game. They sell you a fantasy of control, little check boxes, Little promises, little lies. Do this and you'll be safe, do that and you'll be happy. Be a good little cog in the machine. But the machine is rusting. The bolts are loose. The sparks are flying, and still, they'll hand you a broom and tell you to keep sweeping like nothing's wrong, because the moment you admit that the structure is cracked, you're free, and they can't have that, because chaos is freedom. Not the screaming, burning kind, no, the quiet kind. The kind that whispers, none of this is real. The kind that laughs when the schedule falls apart and the mask slips off. The kind that shows you you've been living in a cage made of calendars and fear. That's the chaos they're afraid of, the kind that wakes you up. But they train you early, don't they? They train you to sit still, to say thank you, to color inside the lines, to keep your questions to yourself. And when the chaos inside you bubbles up, when it begs for something different, they slap a label on it. Call it a phase. Call it rebellion. Call it disorder. And you believe them. Because it's easier to think you're the problem than to realize the world is lying to your face. But routine doesn't mean real, order doesn't mean truth. Sometimes the most organized rooms are the most haunted. Sometimes the most well-behaved people are the most broken. Sometimes the smiling face in the mirror is the most lost. And chaos, sweet, inconvenient, beautiful chaos, is the only thing honest enough to shake the lies loose. But you've got to let it in. You've got to let the cracks form. You've got to stop painting over the mold and start asking why the walls are rotting in the first place. They'll fight you, of course. They'll say you're overthinking, being dramatic, creating problems where there are none. But deep down, they know. They know you're starting to see it. The glitch in the matrix, the flicker in the system. The moment the curtain slips, even for a second, and once you see it, once you let the chaos breathe, you can't unsee it. Because real doesn't follow a script. Real doesn't clock in on time. Real shows up in tears at midnight and laughter at funerals. Real stumbles. Real shouts. Real feels like drowning one day and flying the next. But routine just dulls the blade. Keeps you moving, numb and obedient, so you never stop long enough to realize the game is rigged. So you never notice the strings tied to your wrists. So you keep smiling while everything inside you burns, and tell yourself, this is just how life is supposed to feel. You want to know the real trick? It's not the monster under the bed or the shadow in the hallway. It's the gift. The thing wrapped in fear, soaked in uncertainty, handed to you when everything falls apart. That's the danger, the real danger. Not because it's cursed or dark or evil, but because it's true. Because if you opened it, if you actually looked at it, you'd never be the same. That's why they tell you it's nothing. That's why they make sure you walk right past it. Because it doesn't look like a gift. It looks like loss, like failure, like rock bottom. But that's just the wrapping. See, people expect miracles to be shiny, clean, obvious, like heaven beams down with a choir and a golden envelope. But that's not how it works. Miracles come disguised. They crash into your life like a car wreck. They show up as heartbreak, betrayal, that cold silence when the phone doesn't ring. And you panic, you scream. You think life is falling apart, but it's not falling apart. It's being rearranged. It's tearing down the fake to make room for something you haven't even imagined yet. And they don't want you to know that. They want you to think pain is punishment, that if something's difficult, it must be wrong. But what if pain is the price of truth? What if discomfort is the doorway? What if that thing you're avoiding, that conversation you won't have, that feeling in your gut that you keep drowning with noise, that's the gift. That's the miracle, but you've been trained not to open it. Because if you opened it, you'd start asking questions. You'd start seeing the cracks. You'd realize the story you've been sold doesn't add up. You'd see that your worth isn't in your title or your bank account or how many people pretend to like your photos. You'd see that everything you were chasing was a distraction, that the miracle isn't in the finish line, it's in the breakdown that made you crawl, that the prize wasn't the job or the house or the partner, it was you. The version of you that emerged from the fire, but they make sure you doubt it. They flood your head with noise. Don't be ungrateful. Don't be dramatic. Just move on. They want you numb. They want you polite. They want you digestible. Because if you ever cracked that package open, if you tore into the chaos and pulled the miracle out with your bare hands, they couldn't control you anymore. You'd realize you didn't need permission to rise. You'd stop asking for approval to breathe. And maybe that's the scariest part. That the thing you thought would destroy you is the very thing designed to free you. But it doesn't feel that way, does it? Not at first. No, at first it feels like dying. It feels like losing everything you thought you needed. The people, the plans, the lies that held you together. And in that space where everything goes silent, where there's nothing left to pretend, you get a choice. Not a big one, a quiet one. You can either numb it, bury it, label it, or open it. Most won't. Most will skip it. Too risky, too raw. Because miracles aren't pretty. They don't come gift wrapped. They come wrapped in grief, in endings, in nights you don't think you'll survive. They don't knock, they crash. And when they do, all your beliefs get shaken. All your routines, all your illusions. Everything you thought you could count on, it crumbles. And standing in the wreckage is a box, just sitting there, waiting. And it doesn't look like a blessing. It looks like the last thing you want to touch. But that's the test. That's always the test. Will you open it? Will you touch the thing that terrifies you just to see what's inside? Or will you do what they taught you? Step over it, smile like you're fine, keep going like nothing happened. Because the ones who open it, they don't go back. They don't fit in anymore. They laugh at the lies. They don't dress up for approval. They don't beg for crumbs. They walk different, speak different. They've seen the engine behind the curtain, and they know it's all smoke. The miracle isn't what saves you. It's what shows you. Shows you who you are without the act, without the makeup, without the masks. But to see it, you've got to get quiet. You've got to feel every sharp edge. You've got to bleed a little. Because the wrapping isn't meant to protect the gift. It's meant to test you. To see if you're desperate enough, hungry enough, ready enough to open what you've been avoiding all along. You know what's funny? Not ha-ha funny. More like slit your sanity with a mild kind of funny. People beg for a miracle. They cry for it, pray for it, scream into the night for something to change. But when it finally shows up, dragging its feet and wearing a face they don't recognize, they slam the door shut because it doesn't look the way they expected. It doesn't come clean. It doesn't come convenient. It's not framed in gold or announced by a trumpet. It's usually ugly, uncomfortable, inconvenient. It usually looks like work or loss or a decision that splits your mind in half. That's the thing no one wants to admit. Most people miss their miracle not because it didn't come, but because it didn't look like a miracle. It didn't fit their fantasy. They were waiting for a perfect moment, a sign that felt soft and safe and obvious. But real miracles? They show up in mess. They show up when you're broken, bleeding, when you've been betrayed, when everything's quiet and nothing makes sense. That's when they appear. Not because they're late, but because that's when you're finally ready to see them. And even then, you'll probably flinch, because you've been trained to ignore anything that doesn't feel familiar. If it doesn't match the story in your head, it must be wrong. That's how they get you. That's how they keep you blind. They dress the miracle in struggle and watch you walk away. They wrap the gift in silence and pain and watch you beg for answers somewhere else. And you wonder why nothing changes. You wonder why the help never comes. Maybe it did. Maybe it's been standing right in front of you the whole time, wearing a disguise you refuse to accept. Do you ever think about how much truth we throw away just because it doesn't come with applause? How many breakthroughs we skip because they weren't packaged with comfort? The real stuff, the stuff that rewires your spine and melts the chains from your brain. It doesn't knock politely. It crashes. It offends. It messes up your plans and makes you question everything. But instead of facing it, you scroll, you run. You look for something softer, something easier to digest. Because the truth, it's raw. It's sharp. It's got teeth, but those teeth don't bite. They carve. And still we avoid it. We wait for someone to make it obvious, to hand it to us with a guarantee and a ribbon. But if miracles came with guarantees, they wouldn't be miracles. They'd be transactions. They wouldn't change you, they'd just entertain you. And that's not the point. The point isn't to make you comfortable, it's to wake you up, to rip through your routine and say, hey, everything you believe might be trash, but that's terrifying, isn't it? So you look away. You go back to your checklist, your comfort zone, your cage. Even if it's killing you slowly, at least it's familiar. People always think they recognize a miracle. They say, if something big ever happens, I'll know. No, you won't, because it is happening. It's happening right now, right under your nose, and you're too distracted to see it. Too busy doubting, too caught up in your own echo chamber, and when it finally hits you, it won't feel magical. It'll feel like pain. It'll feel like loss, like betrayal, like failure. That's the doorway. That's the knock. And you'll be too afraid to open it. The truth is, most people don't want miracles. Not really. They want relief. They want escape. They want something external to come in and fix what they're too scared to face. But miracles aren't external. They don't fix you. They reveal you. They strip away everything fake, everything that's been built on fear, and they leave you standing there naked and raw and real. And if you're not ready for that kind of exposure, you'll call it a curse. You'll call it failure. You'll call it bad luck. And you'll miss it completely. It's not that the universe isn't speaking, it's that you don't like the language it's using. It's not that you're not being guided, it's that the path doesn't look the way you pictured. You were expecting a staircase, but you got rubble. You were expecting light, but you got fire. And instead of walking through it, you waited for something better, something prettier, something less Honest. That's how they keep you trapped, not with chains, but with expectations, not with force, but with comfort. You were told that miracles would feel good, but who told you that? Who benefits when you believe that lie? Because as long as you expect the miracle to look perfect,